Do you struggle with motivation? Do you struggle to set key goals and perform actions day in, day out to get you closer to those goals? You sometimes wake up and feel tired. You feel like you don't have the ability, the motivation spiral, right? The more you feel this negative motivation, the more you feel the lack of motivation, the more demotivated do you become. Well, if you have felt like that, I've been there, and I still to this day deal in some way or another with this. But I've created a framework for me that has helped me and served me tremendously in life. What I'm going to do is give you my honest feedback, my honest opinion, and my honest experience on how I become motivated. What I've done over the years is build a business from scratch with 0 investors in a third world country against all odds, and I still, to this day, keep on pushing to build and to grow my business. I lead a team of over 25 people. I've hired over 50 people in my life, and at the age of 30, I still have a long way to go. Whether you're motivated to get into fitness, whether you're motivated to get into business, whether you just want to improve your life in one way or another, this is the framework that I use. First, we have to understand what is motivation. For me, motivation is the ability to exert effort at any given moment in order to achieve an outcome that I would like to achieve. So when you are motivated to go to the gym, what you're doing is you're putting effort against your the feedback loop that you're getting. You may be tired, you may be very stressed, but you are motivated to put in the effort to overcome those negative emotions and those negative sensations in order to do the actions that are going to get you closer to your goal. Think about the last time you were motivated to do something. Let's just say you had an unexpected bill come up, right? You're someone who lives paycheck to paycheck, or you're young and you don't have the financial means to exert yourself, but somehow you managed to find a way to make ends meet in that month. This is motivation. Sometimes we wait for dire circumstances. We wait until we have no other option to find the motivation in us. The most successful people are able to find that motivation day in, day out in all areas of their life, regardless of whether their back is up against the wall or not. So what I do is I understand what motivates me. I know that I'm extremely motivated by tangible things that I'm working towards. At some point, I was motivated to start a business because I wanted an office. I wanted a team. You may call that, in a sense, not the core goal of any business, but for me, that's just something I aspire to. I aspire to have nice things. And at some base level, I use that tangible goal as a way to motivate myself. As I developed myself as an entrepreneur, as I matured, my goals became a lot more focused. It became a lot more oriented towards the success of the business, the impact that I wanted to make. And one thing that a lot of people struggle with is the idea of creating tangible goals they can create or they can attach their motivations to. What does this mean? And I've fallen into this trap before. You may have the motivation to lose 50 pounds, but the task itself is extremely overwhelming. You have so many macro things that you need to do in order to lose the 50 pounds. You can't just click your fingers together and all of a sudden you've lost the weight. What you need to do is you set smaller goals. By breaking down the timeline, all of a sudden the mountain does not seem so overwhelming to climb. It's in those moments where we feel overwhelmed and we don't know where to start that we lose all motivation. They say that hope is what drives. It's the hope of achieving our goals that gives us the motivation to actually take the steps necessary. A good example is I aim to have a $2 million year next year. So I've taken that $2 million, broken it up per quarter of financial targets. By doing that, I'm able to set smaller milestones that I can actually hit on a month-to-month basis. Then I've taken those month-to-month goals and broken them up on a week-to-week basis. Sure, some weeks you might hit it, some week you might not, but at least you have something that is truly tangible. So you're no longer looking at the end of the year and say, oh, I didn't achieve my goal because it was so big. What you've done is you've taken that much larger goal and broken it up into smaller pieces. So by knowing that you have something that is actually achievable, you are motivated to go to it. It's never a consistent goal for me to stay within my comfort zone. But at the same time, you don't put goals just for the sake of putting goals, just for the sake of saying, oh, I aim to have this next year, I aim to have this, and doesn't have a practical reason for setting those goals. Is a fool, is someone who's fooling himself and those around him. And at the same time, over the years or over the months, you'll find yourself becoming more and more demotivated as you fail to achieve these large, lofty goals. One thing that I like to do is I like to look at the feedback loops of my motivation. At the end of the day, every single action is a mix of chemicals. It's a mix of sentiments, of emotions, of sensations that are happening within your body. Just think of the last time that you're motivated. Most likely you felt energized, you felt focused, you felt good. When you don't feel motivated, you feel the opposite. Can you trick yourself, or can you force yourself to get into a state of motivation and train yourself time and time again to potentially overcome the negative emotions? One thing that I do whenever I feel demotivated to get into work, I've created a positive feedback loop. I'll play a music track, right? A set of music tracks that I know that I typically focus really well with. And I use that to kickstart my productivity in the morning. So what I'll do is I'll get in, I'll lay out my list. By doing the list, all of a sudden my mind checks into work mode. It's a very easy task to get out of the way, but I have that list ready, and before I even type the first word or before I do the first design on my screen, I turn on that music. And all of a sudden, because I've done this so many times before, my body has become assimilated to getting into work mode immediately. And I use that trigger to get into my motivated state. So it's no longer waiting for the motivation to hit me, I'm forcing the motivation to hit me. Last but not least is it's extremely important to reinforce positive motivations. We tend to reinforce negative motivations when we pick up our phone to get onto social media, when we get distracted. All of these things, we are consistently reinforcing those actions, because when we feel a certain way, what we do is we respond to that sensation with that action. So if I feel bored, I might get onto social media. By consistently reinforcing those negative motivations, we actually end up reinforcing a lack of productivity. The same can be said about positive motivation. A good example for me is I had set a goal a couple years ago to buy one of my favorite cars. It was a Porsche GT4, and I put that goal at the end of 2020. At the end of the year, I was able, lo and behold, to purchase that car in full in cash. And how I did that was through a series of small steps, and by ultimately rewarding myself with something that I really wanted, not allowing myself to be rewarded by smaller things. Most people set very, very small rewards that are unnecessary. They may go out for dinner at the end of the day. Whatever floats your boat works for you, but I needed to be something that I could go through a year or 2 years or 3 years of zero, and ultimately saving or focusing on one thing and then rewarding myself in a massive way. And at the end of that, what I knew was my motivation will be rewarded. So that motivation sprung new motivations. Believe me when I say that the human mind is so plastic, so malleable, that doing this time and time again, just by the sake of doing this time and time again, day in, day out, you can genuinely find yourself getting out of bad habits and reinforcing positive habits. This is the way that works for me. And ultimately, I'm still developing myself, but I wanted to get on here and share it with you. Let me know, what is the thing that gets you out of bed? Is it just something more ethereal? Is it a mission? What is it? And if you're honest with yourself, would you change your motivation? Would you find new ways to become motivated because the current ways are not?